Hello, BookTube. Well, the long list for the 2016 Man Booker Prize was announced, and it caught me a little by surprise because I had not read all the books on it yet. And I've taken a few days to rectify that situation, and now I'm ready to talk about the books. And the reason that work was important to do is because the Man Booker is really important. It's the third most prestigious literary award in the Western world, and I know that will seem horrifying to British ears, but we have to yield to reality. It takes a second and a third place to the Pulitzer Prize and the Nobel Prize for Literature. But it's more important than either of those two, and for a reason that it shares in large part with the American National Book Award, in that it's less political. It's more governed by readers and authors, and therefore the books that tend to be long-listed and then chosen tend to be very much worth reading. Although, just a tiny rant before we get to the books. I've got the books all right here. But, even the Man Booker is not free of politics, and this year shows that, same as last year did. The Booker's dozen, the 13 titles on the long list, if you strike off the extra book and just bring it to a dozen, exactly half of them are women authors, and exactly half of them are male authors. And that was true last year. And I would be willing to bet you all the mud in Egypt it will be true next year as well. And that drives me crazy, because it means that there's a criteria involved in selecting these books that has nothing to do with their literary quality. There had to be a moment in an editorial meeting somewhere when people looked at the stacks of books that they had chosen and loved, and then started counting genitalia, which should never happen in a literary award. These things ought to be submitted to their judges, stripped of all identification, just the text, just a manuscript, no title, no author, no nothing like that, and judged exclusively on that grounds. Because as it stands, how do we know why all of these books are on the list? How do we know that a couple of these titles by men weren't added on as make-weights because there ended up being too many titles by women, or vice versa? It's political correctness shooting itself in the foot, and it bugs me. But but the good news is that even given that slight infiltration of political correctness, the 2016 Man Booker long list is so strong that in my British rating system, there are no books on it that merit 0 jelly babies. Instead, we go straight away to 1 jelly baby, a mere 1 jelly baby, but still, and there are 4 books in the 1 jelly baby category, and the reason they're there is because I don't understand what they're doing on this list at all. I've read them, and as far as I can tell, they are just straightforward novels, in most cases straightforward historical fiction. They neither have nor seem to me to want to have the extraordinary literary ambitions that we associate with books that would be Booker winners. They're still really good, though. So, they are The North Water by Ian Mcguire, about a whaling ship that embarks on a long cruise, and unbeknownst to most of the people on board, there's a murderer among the crew. And if you're thinking that verges into something deeper, something into Melville territory, you're wrong. It's just that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's really good, but what's it doing on this list? Same thing by far with His Bloody Project by Graeme, McCrae, Burnet, which is a straightforward Victorian crime thriller. If you gave the main character one more odd personality quirk, this would be in the mystery category. Still very good. Still, I'm happy for all 4 of these books. I'm happy that they're going to have that little sticker saying long listed, because that means extra sales. That means a bigger audience, and they deserve it. The third one is Eileen by Motessa Mosfegh. I've mentioned this on this channel before. It was a bit of a sensation, and I don't understand that. It's the story of a woman who works at a Boston boys' prison in the 1960s, who strikes up a friendship with a new lawyer at that prison, and they have capers. It's well done, a little top-heavy, but and the last one is The Many by Wyl Menmuir, about a man who buys an isolated house on the coast and begins to arouse the clannish suspicions of the locals. It's that kind of book. You've read a dozen of them, so have I. It doesn't ever rise to more than that. It's very well done. But these 4 books, I try not to play guessing games and Monday morning quarterbacking about the Man Book or even the long list, but I can easily think of 4 books from the time period that we're selecting from that should have been on this list instead of these 4. So I'm not really sure what they're doing here. And again, because of the specter of political correctness, I can't help but wonder if some of these are on the list because of which bathroom the author uses. And that's wrong. I shouldn't even be thinking that. Maybe I'm wrong. Well, let's move on. The 2 Jelly Baby category consists of 3 well-known names. There's The Schooldays of Hey-Zeus by J.M. Coetzee, which is his continuing, I guess, religious allegory about a boy on the run from his guardians who, in this particular book, takes up dancing. And there are some shenanigans that I couldn't quite pin down. There's My Name is Lucy Barton by Elizabeth Strout, the author of Olive Kitteridge, about, in large part, about a main character whose life is derailed by a hospital visit and the shockwaves that causes in her immediate family. And the last one is Serious Sweet by A.L. Kennedy, about 2 ordinary down-on-the-luck characters navigating their way through one day in London. And these are all 3 well-known authors, and these are 3 boring books. There's nothing to them but plot, and even the plot is largely phoned in. Because they're seasoned professionals, the books don't actually structurally fail, but they are unremarkable. There is no... I find it hard to believe that there is a reader anywhere in the world who would finish one of these 3 books and say, oh my God, my mind is blown. And really, shouldn't that be a criterion for one of the most prestigious literary awards in the world? It seems almost like these people are punching a time clock to be on this list, and that's a little depressing to me. But the 3 Jelly Baby category is not depressing at all. Here's where things start to glow just a little. And the first one of those is All That a Man Is by David Szalay, an author I was unfamiliar with. This is structurally the weakest book on the list. It's 9 men, the stories of 9 different men in different parts of the world living their lives, and I guess encountering what I guess the author is characterizing as typifying incidents about manhood. Wasn't really clear to me. 2 of the stories are quite good. The rest are workshop material. The reason it's a 3 Jelly Baby is because the writing, when it's good in this book, is very good. But still, no idea what it's doing on this list. Then there's Hystopia by David Means, sort of alternate 1960s in which President Kennedy has been the victim of many assassination attempts, but none of them successful. He's retained life and power. And the Vietnam War has metastasized into this octopus of a nightmare that has redounded to the homeland in the upper Midwest. And it's marvelous satire, wonderfully done. But that's all it is. It doesn't have any literary virtuosity. It doesn't have any linguistic virtuosity. It doesn't have much of a plot. It's just zany. It's zany, very well done, but it's just zany. Then there's Hot Milk by Deborah Levy, about a mother suffering. She's wheelchair bound. She's suffering from a mystery illness, and she and her daughter are traveling to find a cure. The plot struck me as the author doesn't really hold on to it very well in the course of the book, but her writing is just superb. I firmly predict that in 5 or 6 years, 2 or 3 books, she's going to write something that just blows away the whole literary world. I firmly, you can see that in this book. And the last one is Do Not Say We Have Nothing by Madeleine Thien. You might have seen Jason Purcell's long and wonderful appreciation of this book on his own channel. It's the story of two generations in an extended Chinese family living through a lot of the major events in Chinese history of the 20th century. And it's extremely accomplished, extremely well done. I thought it was a little mechanical and a little dutiful. But then I've had my reservations about all of these three Jelly Baby books. They're all really good. Definitely, you know, the kind of book that appears on a list in a year that is worth your time to read. But think about some of the people who have won the Booker Award. Anyway, that brings us to the much-coveted fourth Jelly Baby. And there are two books in that category. There's The Sellout by Paul Beatty, which is, again, another satire. This is a social satire and a racial satire about, among many other things, a sporadic and nut-job attempt to reestablish the institution of slavery in the state of California. But there's so much more going on in the book. And aside from weak, creaky dialogue, the whole thing just sings. And the last one is Work Like Any Other by Virginia Reeves, which is a debut novel of hers. It's the story of an ordinary man in rural Alabama a century ago who has been laying illegal power lines, and they've killed people, and he has to face prison for that. And the whole book is, it's a small meditation, but a powerful one on how that all affects his life. And it's beautiful, just beautiful. It doesn't have any weaknesses that I could see. It tremendously impressed me when I read it months ago, and it tremendously impressed me when I reread it just recently. And that's it. Those are the books as they shake out. And because this is the Man Booker, you can't not jump into the betting pool, and so I will. My prediction, I cannot conceive that the award will go to any of the one Jelly Baby books. I can't conceive that will happen. And I find it hard to believe that even dead momentum will give it to any of the two Jelly Baby books, no matter how well known their authors are, which really limits us to the 3 and the 4. And of course, because I ranked them this way, I'm putting all my money on the 4th Jelly Babies. And here's my prediction of what's going to happen. I predict that Virginia Reeves is going to win this thing for Work Like Any Other. If she doesn't win, then it will be Paul Beatty for The Sellout. So you can hold me to that. That's what I say is going to happen. And I'd love to hear if you've read any of these books or plan to. And if you have, what you think is going to go all the way. And I'll see you soon, Book 2. Thank you.